Okay, so get this. We're diving into Liquity V2 today, and
Liquity V2.
it's pretty wild. Imagine like you get to decide the interest rate on your loans, not some algorithm
Yeah,
that's Liquity V2 for you,
right.
bringing that kind of power to DeFi. You sent over that transcript from DeFi Dad's YouTube channel.
Right.
We're gonna break it all down.
It's pretty fascinating. Really flips the script. You're not dealing with centralized entities, calling all the shots.
Right.
It puts the power in the hands of users.
I like it already. And why should our listeners care about this?
Well, Liquity V2 is a major upgrade to a lending platform. And get this, it's already issued billions of dollars in loans. Could become like a fundamental building block of DeFi.
Yeah.
Could change how we think about borrowing and lending, the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to miss out on that. But before we go any further, let's back up a sec. For those who are new to this whole thing, what exactly is DeFi and what makes Liquity so special?
DeFi, or decentralized finance, it's all about recreating those traditional financial systems, like lending, borrowing, but without the need for banks
I see.
or intermediaries.
Yeah.
It's all about transparency, control, open access, that kind of thing.
Got it. So no more shady fees or like hidden agendas.
Exactly.
Now tell me about Liquity. I know there was like a V1, right?
Right. Liquity V1, was a pioneer in the CDP space, collateralized debt position. Essentially, it's a loan where you put up crypto as collateral, like ETH.
So like pawning your digital assets, kind of.
In a way, yeah. So for 3 years, Liquity V1 ran without a hitch, issued over $4.6 billion in loans.
Wow, that's impressive.
It was. And, it became one of the most forked DeFi protocols, meaning other developers used its code, for their own projects.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Really reliable, well-designed.
So if V1 was so successful, why even bother with a V2? What's the point?
Well, even the best systems have room for improvement, right?
Right.
V1 had some challenges, especially when we saw those super high interest rate environments last year.
Oh, yeah.
Users were tempted to sell the stablecoin, LUSD, to chase those yields, higher yields elsewhere. And that triggered redemptions, people taking their collateral back, and it reduced the platform's efficiency.
So people were like jumping ship for a quick buck.
Exactly. And that wasn't ideal, especially for users who wanted to hold on to their loans, keep their leverage.
That makes sense. So V2 is trying to address those issues, make the system more resilient.
Precisely. V2 wants to be the gold standard for CDPs, stablecoin solutions. It introduces some key innovations, multi-collateral support, users setting their own interest rates, a brand new stablecoin called BOLD,
Wow.
and a sustainable way to generate real yield.
Hold on. A lot to unpack there. Let's start with multi-collateral. What does that even mean?
So in V1, you could only use ETH as collateral, but V2, it expands the options.
I like options. So what can people use as collateral in V2?
Initially, ETH and 2 liquid staking tokens, Lido Steth and Rocket Pool ETH.
I've heard of those. They're like tokens that represent your staked ETH, right?
Right. And the reason Liquity chose these is they're focused on ETH, and they're really cautious about adding collateral. Remember, immutability.
Refresh my memory. What was that again?
Immutability means the code of the protocol can't be changed once it's launched, set in stone.
Oh, right.
So they're very careful, about adding anything that hasn't been thoroughly tested.
Got it. No risky experiments. So ETH and these liquid staking tokens.
Yeah. And there were discussions about adding other liquid staking derivatives, sometimes called LSDs.
LSDs. Okay.
As collateral, but, there were potential risks associated with slashing. So
Slashing.
slashing is a penalty that can happen in some proof-of-stake systems.
Yeah.
If a validator misbehaves, you can lose some of your staked ETH.
Ouch.
Liquity wants to be as secure and predictable as possible.
Yeah.
So they just decided to hold off on the LSDs for now.
Makes sense. Playing it safe. But still giving more options than V1. Now, this user set interest rate thing, you mentioned that earlier, and it kind of blew my mind.
It's a pretty big deal. This is where V2 really stands out.
Okay.
So in V1, everyone paid a one-time fee, and redemptions, people taking their collateral back, were based on the loan-to-value ratio. But in V2, you pick your interest rate. This gives you so much more control, flexibility.
Wait, so I can borrow BOLD and just pick whatever interest rate I want?
Well, there are nuances. Lower rates have a higher risk of being redeemed first, if the value of BOLD drops.
I see. Okay.
Higher rates are safer, but you pay more.
So it's a trade-off. More risk, lower rate. Play it safe, pay a little more.
Exactly. And this market-driven approach, it applies to people holding BOLD, too.
Okay.
They earn a yield, basically interest, determined by borrower demand. Like a dynamic interest rate adjusts based on how many people want to borrow BOLD.
My mind is officially blown. This is way more dynamic responsive than traditional finance.
Yeah, it's a shift.
Big time.
And get this, you can adjust your rate anytime.
Wait, really? So if I start to get nervous about the market or something, I can just crank up my interest rate to make my loans safer.
You got it.
Yeah.
There's a 7-day interest payment each time, to prevent manipulation.
Okay.
But you have complete control.
This is amazing. It's like a personalized interest rate dial.
And if you prefer a more hands-off approach, there's delegation.
Delegation?
You could delegate the rate setting to like a hot wallet, a third party, or a provider that can automate strategies for you.
Wow, so there's a solution for everyone.
There you go.
This is incredible. Okay, I need a minute to process all of this.
Sure.
We got to talk about BOLD, this new stablecoin. I'm dying to know more.
Yeah, let's dive into that next.
All right, I'm back and ready to talk BOLD. What's the story with this new stablecoin?
Well, BOLD is created when users deposit their collateral.
Okay.
Either ETH or those liquid staking tokens we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And then they mint BOLD against it.
So it's like printing money, but in a crypto kind of way?
You could say that. BOLD, it actually shares a lot of similarities with LUSD, the stablecoin from V1.
Okay.
Unstoppable.
Meaning?
No central authority can control it.
Right.
And it's directly redeemable for the underlying collateral.
So if I have BOLD, I can always swap it back for ETH or the staking tokens.
Exactly. And like LUSD, it offers real yield.
Real yield.
Which is something you don't often see with other stablecoins.
Break that down for me. Real yield.
A lot of stablecoins, they just kind of sit there in your wallet, not doing much.
Right.
But with BOLD, you can actually earn passive income just by holding it.
Interesting.
We'll talk more about how that works later on.
I'm intrigued. But before we get there, I have to ask, since BOLD is redeemable for collateral, doesn't that create a risk, like what happened in V1, those redemptions that can lead to instability?
That's a great question. Redemptions are a core feature of both LUSD and BOLD.
Right.
Making sure they stay pegged to the collateral. But remember, those users set interest rates.
Ah, I see where you're going. So if people start thinking about redeeming their BOLD, borrowers can just up their interest rates, incentivize people to hold on.
Exactly. It's like a checks and balances kind of thing. Borrowers can adjust their rates to influence BOLD holders, and it helps to kind of mitigate that risk of mass redemptions.
That's a pretty clever solution, turning this stablecoin into its own little market. But how about this native yield? Where does the revenue come from? What's paying BOLD holders?
The revenue comes from the interest paid by borrowers.
Okay.
And this is where V2 really shines.
Okay.
It distributes that revenue directly to BOLD holders.
So the protocol's not hoarding all the money. It's going back to the users.
Exactly. It really prioritizes users. It's a refreshing approach.
I like it. So how does this revenue sharing actually work?
75% of the revenue goes directly to the stability pool depositors. They're the ones holding BOLD, helping to ensure, the system is stable.
Right.
The remaining 25% is for other liquidity providers.
Okay.
And that specific allocation is determined by LQTY stakers.
Hold up. LQTY, that's Liquity's governance token, right? Gives you voting rights and all that.
That's right. And this is another way V2 stands out. It's not about endlessly creating more LQTY tokens, It's about distributing that protocol revenue, incentivized liquidity for BOLD.
So it's a self-sustaining ecosystem. Everyone benefits from the platform's success.
Exactly. It's a system called Protocol Incentivized Liquidity, or PIL for short.
PIL. Got it.
It ensures that there's always enough liquidity for BOLD, prevents those funds from getting stuck in a treasury.
Makes sense.
Creates a market-aware system.
Yeah.
And the best part, it does all this without sacrificing immutability or needing, constant intervention from the core team.
So they're letting the market do its thing, a hands-off approach to governance that's much more efficient than those slow and complex governance processes that some other DeFi projects use, right?
Absolutely. It's another example of how Liquity V2 is pushing the boundaries. It's creating a truly decentralized, market-driven system.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the bigger picture. Liquity V2 isn't just another lending platform.
Right.
It's laying the groundwork for a whole new wave of DeFi applications. It's like how all these pieces fit together. The user set interest rates, the direct revenue, the focus on liquidity.
Yeah.
It's all designed to create this predictable, market-driven environment that developers can build on.
You're absolutely right. We could see things like interest rate swaps.
Okay.
Where
Yeah.
Users hedge against, interest rate volatility or yield aggregators that optimize returns across those V2 forks.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Back up. Forks. What are we talking about now?
Remember, Liquity V1 was one of the most forked protocols in DeFi history.
Yeah.
Well, Liquity has a new strategy for V2. They're making the source code available for review,
Okay.
but it's under a business license for a few years before it becomes open source.
So being a bit protective of their intellectual property.
Exactly. They want to make sure they retain some control, benefit from the success of the code base,
Makes sense.
and they're also collaborating with other ecosystems to launch these V2 forks
Okay.
with different types of collateral.
So instead of everyone just copying V2, they're encouraging a more structured approach. Everyone benefits.
Exactly. And each fork will have its own stablecoin and governance token.
Ah,
Creates a network of interconnected yet independent systems.
that's fascinating. It's like a franchise model for DeFi,
You got it.
allowing other ecosystems to use Liquity's technology while Liquity captures some value.
It's a really smart strategy. Could lead to rapid adoption.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, we've talked about governance in terms of LQTY and protocol incentivized liquidity, but how about governance as a whole in V2? Is it still community driven?
Liquity V2 is actually designed to be what we call governance light.
Governance like.
Yeah, meaning those core parameters, the functionality,
Mhm.
they're immutable, can't be changed by votes.
That's reassuring. It puts the emphasis on stability,
Right.
predictability
Exactly.
at the protocol level.
The role of LQTY stakers, it's mainly focused on influencing how that 25% of protocol revenue is distributed through PIL.
Right.
They decide where those liquidity incentives go.
So they're still involved, but it's more automated.
Precisely. Streamlined reduces the need for those complex governance processes.
Yeah.
A more efficient system, I think they've found a good balance.
Yeah, incorporating community input while keeping things stable and secure.
Right.
Well, this has been incredibly insightful. We've covered so much, but let's bring it back to our listener for a moment. Why should they care about all of this?
If you're interested in DeFi, even a little bit,
Yeah.
Liquity V2 is a unique opportunity to be part of a system that's truly decentralized, transparent.
Mm-hmm.
You can borrow and earn with stable coins on your own terms, set your own interest rates, share in the revenue.
It's about taking control of your finances in DeFi, having a say, potentially earning a yield on your stablecoins. This is something traditional finance just can't offer.
Exactly. It's about empowering people to participate in a financial system that's, fairer and more efficient.
We'll be back soon to continue our exploration of Liquity V2. Stay tuned. Welcome back to our deep dive on Liquity V2. We've explored the ins and outs, how it works in the real world, and even got a peek at the future it could shape.
It's pretty exciting stuff.
It is, but for this last part, let's switch gears a bit. Let's get philosophical,
I like it. We've covered the what of Liquity V2,
Right.
but now it's time for the why.
Exactly, because underneath all this tech, there's this set of ideas, right, that really challenge how we think about money, like what money even is.
Yeah, so we're looking behind the curtain of traditional finance.
Right.
Seeing the code, the systems, how it all works. And Liquity V2, it's asking this radical question.
Okay, what's the question?
What if these systems, what if they were more human?
Hold on, I'm all for philosophy and all, but what does that even mean? For, smart contracts to be more human?
It comes down to agency, In traditional finance, you're kind of just a passive participant. Deposit your money, take out a loan. But the terms, they're dictated to you. Interest rates set by committees, fees you don't understand. The whole thing feels, I don't know.
Opaque.
Yeah, out of your control.
Like you're a tiny cog in a giant machine.
Exactly. But Liquity V2, it puts you back in control.
Yeah.
Set your rate, choose your risk, and benefit directly from the revenue.
You're steering the ship, not just along for the ride.
Precisely. And that shift in power, it aligns with the core of DeFi, right? Decentralization, transparency, individual empowerment, all that.
It's almost like a mini democracy.
Yeah.
Where each user has a voice, a vote.
I like that. And it's not just about the mechanics either, right? Liquity V2, it's fostering this community where people collaborate, they learn from each other, they shape the future of the protocol.
So it's not just individual, it's collective too.
Exactly. Building a system aligned with human values.
Yeah.
Everyone has a stake, everyone can benefit.
Now that's what I'm talking about. This is why I'm excited about Liquity V2. It's not just making money. It's about creating a system that's more just, more equitable.
Absolutely. A system that works for everyone.
Right. Not just a select few.
That's the goal of DeFi, right?
Right.
Breaking free from those limitations, those injustices of traditional finance, building something better.
But let's be real for a sec. This sounds kind of utopian, right?
Sure.
And there are still challenges. DeFi can be intimidating, all the jargon, the complexity. How do we get everyday people to understand this stuff?
You're right. Adoption is always a challenge, right?
Yeah.
New technology, and DeFi especially, it's got that steep learning curve.
Yeah, you can get lost in the weeds pretty easily. Smart contracts, liquidity pools, it's like a whole other language.
Exactly. Education is key, and user experience, making it simple.
Liquity needs to make V2 accessible to everyone, not just the DeFi experts.
I agree. Simple interfaces, clear explanations, a welcoming community. People need to feel comfortable asking questions.
Exactly. And then there's scalability, right?
Hmm.
Can Liquity V2 handle, a ton of users? If it's going to disrupt traditional finance, it needs to be able to grow.
That's the big question. Can this go mainstream?
Right.
And that's where those V2 forks, the whole DeFi ecosystem comes in.
Okay.
Collaboration is key. Liquity, other projects, leveraging the power of the community, that's how this makes a real impact.
Building bridges, not silos, right?
Right.
A network of platforms working together.
Exactly. We need that rising tide that lifts all boats.
This feels like a turning point for DeFi,
Yeah.
We're moving past the experimental phase into something more mature, more impactful.
And Liquity V2 is leading the way. It's innovative, sure, but it's also got those values, right? Decentralization, empowerment, inclusivity.
It's a glimpse into a future where finance isn't this tool of control, It's a force for good.
I like that.
And as we wrap up our deep dive on Liquity V2, we want to leave you with this thought. It's not just about technology.
It's about choices.
All right, the choices we make. What kind of system do we want to support?
Do we stick with the old way? The way that often feels, I don't know, rigged? Or do we embrace this potential of DeFi?
To build something better.
Something more human, more equitable, something that reflects our values.
The future is in our hands. Let's make good choices. That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into Liquity V2.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you learned something new, that you're as excited about the future of DeFi as we are. Until next time, keep diving deep, keep asking questions, and keep building that future we want to see.
Absolutely.